This tutorial is going to show you how to use Google Forms. Google Forms can be used for surveys, to answer questions, quizzes, and Google Forms connects with Google Sheets so that all of your answers are put into a spreadsheet, which can be very useful. So let's start by, there's two different ways that you can go to Forms. If you hit New, once you're in Drive, and you hit More, it's usually the first one that comes up, Google Forms here. Or the other way is if you're in your mail and you're not in Drive and you have your waffle, it never comes up on the first try, but if you go to More, it's usually the second one. So I'm going to click Forms. And you'll see that they give you some templates, okay, so you can start a new blank one. You can use this as an exit ticket or an assessment, a quiz, worksheet. So there's a couple of different ones here that are already set up. For today's purposes, I'm going to start a blank form. So now once you have your form created, this is the default form. You'll see it comes up with a color here, and it's untitled. So the first thing we want to do is title our form. So if you highlight it, I'm just going to call it Practice Test. Okay, and you can put it in the description. So practice for tutorial video. And then you have your first question. If you look up here, you'll see this little color palette. If you click on that, you can change the color of your background. But if you want to have a design, if you click on this image icon here, if you click on that, it has the same themes, very similar to the themes that you have in Google Classroom or the ones for your email. So I'm just going to pick on that one and select it. And there's my theme. So you can make it look a little nicer. Okay, you also have your settings wheel up here. If you click on your settings, this is where you can add some settings. So if you want to collect email addresses, so you want to see where it's actually coming from, if you don't put that as a question in your form, then you may not see where it's coming from. So if you want to see the collect email addresses to see the email that the person you're sending this quiz to or practice test is coming from, then you would click on that. If you want to limit to one response, this is where you would click it here, because otherwise people keep coming in and taking the test over and over, especially if this is a quiz or a survey that you're sending out. You may want to limit your participants to only being able to answer one time. So you would click that here and you just click the box, and I'm not going to do it for now, I'm going to turn it off. Okay? And again here, this is where you can say if you want them to edit after they submit it. So if somebody does hand in a quiz, but you want to give them that option, and maybe they just submitted it and it's a minute later and they want to fix it and they didn't have a chance to look somewhere else, you may give them that option. Or you may say once it's turned in, that's final. Okay? And you can see a summary of the responses. This works with Google Sheets. I'll show you that later. So once you have your test started, it's a good idea to add a question for a student's name. So you're going to make this a short answer question so that they have to answer it, and they just put in their name. So you have to hit required here, so make sure that they have to answer it. Because later on, I'm going to show you when you look at the timesheet where all the scores come in, you won't be able to see. So right now, I'm going to show you without name. There's no name here. These are a bunch of questions that we're going to ask, and you don't know who answered what. So you actually want to have a field as an actual question for name so that you can see who answers what questions when they come in on the spreadsheet. So once you have your form ready, you can continue to add questions. So let's look at this first untitled question. So I'm going to look at this as if I'm setting up a quiz. So I'm going to, my first question, if I click in here, you'll see the options. So you can have a multiple choice question, and if you pull down on this arrow, you'll see your other choices. So you can have a short answer. That would only require a few words or a small sentence. If it's more of an open-ended response and you want a paragraph, you'd need to pick paragraphs so there's a little more space. You can have check boxes, which is great. It's practice for the park. It's more than one answer. You can have the drop-down menu, so when you pull on the arrow, the answers will drop down, a lot like Park as well. You can have some scales, grids. We're going to go over this. And this is where we can check on the date and time. For now, I'm going to leave it on multiple choice for my first question. And I'm just going to ask a question. What is the color of the sky? And now here's my option. So I'm going to put in as many as I want. So now it gives you one as a default right here, but then you just go to Add Option and click in that area, your cursor, and it gives you the second. So, and you can put as many as you want. So if you want to have 3 answers, choices, or 4 answer choices. So I'm going to pick 4 for now. And if you decide you want to change something or get rid of it, if you just click the X, it'll get rid of it. So maybe you don't want to have 4 choices, and so now I'm going to get rid of that. You can get rid of it right there, or you can add it back. At the bottom, this is where, if it's a required question, so they can't submit the form without answering it. So I want to definitely make sure that it is required that they answer this and cannot go on without that. Here you can see some things that you can add. Okay, so if this question is good and I just want to go on to the next question, I would hit Add Question. If I want to add a title and a description, that's where I would click that. So I have just a title page. If I want to add an image, I would click on that Add Image. You can take something that's in your drive, something that's saved on your hard drive, something that you've searched, and this is where you would insert an image. So I'm going to choose something that I have. For now, I'll click this one. And there's my image. So maybe I want write down 2 observations about this photo. You can also add videos. If you click on that, you can search YouTube, or if you already have the URL, you just paste it there. Cancel that one for now. And you can add a section. So if you add another, instead of another question, maybe you just want a section, it broke them up. You'll see that it's a different section as opposed to continuing on with the questions that you already started. You can also see that once you do something, you do have some options to change it. So I did this section down here, and maybe I just decided I don't want it as a separate section. If you click on these 3 dots here, that's where you have some options. You highlight it. You can duplicate it, so maybe I want another section that looks just like this. Maybe I want to get rid of it altogether, or maybe I want to merge it with the above so that there's not a break here, that it just continues. For now, I'm going to delete it, and there it goes. So now you can see I'm back to where I was, and I've decided I don't need this title down here. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. And if you click in the box, like right now you'll see this blue line here, that means I'm working within this box, and that's when you have your options come up here to either duplicate it or delete it, and then pull on this, and you can hover text, show. So if I click out of that, and I want to go in this box to actually make changes, now I can actually delete it. So I don't need this title here. I'm going to delete it. Okay, and now it brings me back to this question. Now what I want to do is I want to add another question. So I'm going to click on Add a Question. And I want to change the type of question. So let's make this one a checkbox. So now we can type a question. And maybe the checkboxes are when we're going to have more than one answer. So type one in, click to the next. And type in as many as you want. So now again, they can click on all of these. Okay? I want to make this a required question again, so I'm going to click on that tab. And at any point during this, if you want to see what this would look like to the students, you can preview. So I'm going to preview here. And this is what it would look like to the person that you're sending it to. So you can practice clicking on it, and you can see that you can click on more than one. And if you look up here, you can only click on one, sort of like Park, because it's a multiple choice question. I'm going to go back to the editing phase. You hit this pencil. I don't want to make changes right now. Okay, so do you want to leave this site? I do want to leave it, so I don't want those changes to take effect. So I have other types of questions, so I'm just going to end up adding another question. Now notice if I'm in this box and I hit add question, it's going to go between these two questions. So if you want it to just kind of go in order, so let's say after this last question, I'm going to click in this box, and then I'm going to add a question. And now I can pick which one I want. So short answer, it's a yes or no question, or just, a few words. So, do you like pizza? And here's the box to answer. Okay, so they don't have a lot of space, so it's really just for a shorter answer. Let's click on paragraph now so you can see the difference. So now I'm going to make this one a paragraph and explain what season you like best. Now, you don't see it right now, but you will see as they type, it'll give them more space to continue typing. And I want to make this required. And I want to go back because I realized I didn't make that one required. Okay, so now you can preview it. And we'll see that here, you can say yes or no. Over here, you can type a little more, so you can type out a whole paragraph. Summer best. There is no school. So you'll see that it will go down to the next sentence here. So as you keep typing, it'll let them keep typing the paragraph. Again, I don't want to save this. I'm just trying to show you that. So I want to go back to edit. It's going to ask me if I want to leave it. I do. And it'll bring me back to my questions. The next type of question you can create is a drop-down. So over here, instead of multiple choice, and if you notice, it defaults to multiple choice every time. So if you use this drop-down arrow, we can make a drop-down question. And say, which season do you like best? And we put in our options. And if you notice, as I just click in where it says add option, it will put it in. And you can put as many as you want. And I want to make sure that this question again is required. Okay, and now that question is auto-saved, just like everything. And you can see all changes saved in Drive, just like all the other Google apps for education, Google Docs and Sheets and Slides, they automatically save. So that question is saved. So now I want to click and I want to go to my next type of question, which is a linear scale. If you click on that, you'll see a scale come up. So these are the types of questions where the least to the greatest, or asking them for a range. It defaults to 5. You can make it higher, so I'm going to make it go up to 10. And it asks you to label, so is 1 the least or the greatest? So I'm going to say 1 meaning the least, 10 meaning best. And then you need to go back and ask your question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to start the new school year? And now the students would fill in where they fall. If they're somewhere in the middle in 5, if they're really excited, it'll be a 10, and if they really don't want to be there, it's going to be 1. And I'm going to make that required. The next type of question is a multiple choice grid. So if you click on this pull down menu, you'll see that as the choice. I pre-typed, since this is a little more typing, a type of question. And this type of question is a little hard to visualize, so I'm going to show you the preview. But this is a type of question where you maybe have a row and columns. So I have 4 children, and I'm asking how old each child is based on this word problem. You can have each row only one answer or more than one. So the easiest thing to show you is the preview, just to see how this would make sense. So I'm going to click on preview. I'm going to scroll down to that question. Okay, and here's that question. So I'm asking a question, and I want them to answer going across this row. And only one, right now I have it set that only one answer is allowed per row. So it's going to switch if I change it. I can make it so that more than one answer can be correct. Okay, so if I Click on that. So this is how you would kind of set it up visually. So you have your rows and then you have your answers in columns. I'm going to get out of my preview and go back. And again, I don't want to keep the changes, so I'm going to leave the page without saving it and go back down to that question. Okay, so you can see how your rows are kind of going across with the name, but then the column, it's set up a little different than other questions, so it's maybe not used as much. And with this type of question, it definitely helps to preview because it's a little hard to visualize this way. Another type of question would be a question where you're requiring a date. So if you click down on the date, now the question is, what is your birthday? Okay, and it's requiring the month, the date, and the year. If you click on these three questions, you can say what you want to do. So do you want to include the year? Maybe you don't. If you want to include the time, you can click time, and that will put it there as well. And that's also another one of these questions where maybe you just want time, it's right here. So this one I want date and time. So I can always change that afterwards with these three dots, or sort of your settings. Okay, if you want a description as well, you can click that here, so that you can ask or have them say something about their birthday. But for here, let's say I just want the time and the date. Okay, again, I want it to be a required question. And if you want to see what that looks like, you can go to the preview and come down, and you can see how it's asking for a time and date. Okay, so you must fill it in. I'm going to go back up to the top, and I'm going to go to edit again. And this time when I click the edit form, notice I didn't get that question about asking me if I want to leave or not. That's because I didn't make any changes on the page. So it automatically just brings me to the end. So now if you want, you can make different sections. So say maybe you want to have all the multiple choice in one section, or short answer, or you just want to break this up into sections. So I'm going down to this question here to show you what a section would look like. So if I click on this add a section, it breaks it apart. And now it's 2 of 2. And if you go up to the top here, you'll see section 1 of 1. Okay, so that's how if you want to actually kind of separate it. And you can tell it where to go to. So I'm telling it when you're done here, I want you to go right to the next section. Okay, you can change to go to different sections if you want. But right now I'm going to have it go in order. So I want to go back to the top. And I want to look at the responses. So if you click on responses, right now I haven't sent this anywhere. It's telling me it has 0 responses. Okay, I am accepting responses, so this can be a form if you used it. Maybe you're asking a survey. Maybe you're only accepting responses at certain times. So if you want to turn it off, then you're not accepting them that time. Not that you want to delete the form, you just don't want to accept any new responses. I'm going to click that on here. This symbol means it's creating a spreadsheet in Google Sheets. If you look in your drive, once I created this form, so I'm going to go to my drive. Here's my practice test form, okay? It will make a spreadsheet for you. So this is a previous practice I've done, and here's the responses. So right now I have that form in my drive, saved in my drive. So I'm going to go back to it, and I'm going to click on these 3 dots again, because that's where my options were. So if you want to get email notifications for every time somebody responds, so you may not want that if this is a quiz for your entire class, because you're just going to go in and see all the responses later. But you can, if you want, if this is something that you're not expecting responses all at once, like a survey or something that people may not send in right away, you may want to get an email notification every time somebody does fill out your form. For instance, as tech facilitators, we have a form for you to request us. And we have this checked because it's random. We don't know when you're going to request our services, so we want to get an email that tells us that you filled out the form. Okay, but if this is just like a classroom quiz or test, you may not want that. So it depends the purpose of your form. What you do want to do is you want to select the response destination, meaning where are the answers going. So if I click on that, you have the options to create a new spreadsheet, and it takes the name of your, whatever you named your form, and then puts responses in parentheses so you know that it's the answers for this form that you created. Or if you already had an existing spreadsheet, you can do that. But I don't think you're really going to use this one. So the default is to create a new spreadsheet. So I'm going to create it. Now when I go back to my drive, I'm going to refresh it. And I'm going to scroll down to where that practice test is. Now if you look here, here's my practice test that I created, this form that I'm working in right now, and it created the responses. So if I click on this spreadsheet, it'll open up Google Sheets. Right now you don't have anything in there, but here are the questions. What is the color of the sky? Why don't you like pizza? Here's all the questions that I asked, and as the students fill it out, they're going to fill it in. It's going to fill into this form right here. You can break up the test into several sections, and one reason you may want to do that is you can have a question that, depending on the answer, will take you to that certain section. So I'm going to show you what I mean. So first thing you got to do is create a new question. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my last question and click on plus. And to do this feature, it has to be a multiple choice or a checkbox question. So I'm going to leave it as a multiple choice. And I'm going to ask, and the choices are going to be the beach or the pool. I'm going to make it a required question. Okay, now I want to click on those three dots and I want to go to a section based on the answer. Okay, so before I can do that, I want to make my sections. So this is my button for sections. So I'm going to add a section underneath, and then I'm going to actually scroll down, click into this section, and add another section. So that I end up with 3 of them. Okay, and then I'm going to title this section, the second one, the beach. And I'm going to give some directions. So and then the third section is going to be for the pool. And I'm going to use the same directions, so I'm going to copy and paste, make it quicker. And let's change this to pool. So now I have my 3 sections. Now I'm going to go back where I asked the original question. I'm going to highlight it. And now I need to go to those 3 dots. And I want to go to the section based on the answer. So now if the student answers the beach, I want them to go to section 2. So I'm going to pull that down. It's actually going to have it and tell me the titles of it. So I'm going to click on section 2. And if they answer the pool, I want them to go to section 3. Okay, so now, based on their answer, it'll bring them to that section. So you see how right here it's broken, it says continue to the next section. Okay, but over here, I'm letting them know that if they answer the beach, they go to section 2. And if they answer the pool, they're going to section 3. And then they will continue from there. Another thing to note is after you make these sections, these are just the titles. There's actually not a question here. This one I had added it. So I'm going to show you what I did down here. You actually have to go highlight and now hit add the question. And then you can make it a paragraph for them to actually put it in. So this is sort of like a title box down here if you just want to say put your answer here. Because if we don't give them this other section, it won't have a place for them to type. It'll just tell them what to do, but nowhere to put it. So if you want them to actually do it on the form, you would have to do that. Add it as a question and then paragraph. Another very handy feature as a teacher is these 3 dots down here has another option, if you click on it, to shuffle the option order. So it will shuffle the answers. So again, it will help prevent cheating or wandering eyes. If anybody happens to look over, they may have the questions in the same order, but they're going to have the answers in a different order. So that really helps a lot if you are using this to give a test or quiz. So once you have your quiz made, it is a Google Apps for Education platform, so there are a few things that you can do, just like in Google Docs and Sheets. If you click on these three dots, you can make a copy. You can just delete it all together. You can print it. This is where you can share it with other collaborators. And there are a few add-ons. If you've used add-ons, there are programs that you can add into this program that can help you do certain things. They're in Docs and Sheets, and that's really another tutorial. So I'm just going to mention that if you're familiar with add-ons, you can get them here. Okay, but for now, when I'm done, I want to send it. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can send it through email, but if you have an entire class, I don't think you're going to type in all your class's email, so you're going to want to get the link. So here is the link that you can put in Google Classroom or on your teacher page that students can link to get to it. You can shorten it right here, the URL shortener. Okay. If you are using a web page, you can actually embed. This would be the embed code. That's where you would see it embedded on your page. But I think for most of you, you're going to use either the link or the email. Okay, and if you want to automatically get their username, okay, you would click that here. So I'm going to show you not the quiz we just did because I don't have anybody to send it to, but a previous quiz. It was actually called Practice. So here's the quiz. I'm just going to open it up so you can see what that looks like. Okay, and I put in a lot of similar questions, and I just put in now. And I had sent this to some colleagues, so I can show you what it would look like. So when you get your answers in, this is how it's going to look. Okay, so you can see the name of your favorite town and pizza, or where do you live, and this here is your questions that come in, the answers that come into your questions. What's really nice is this timestamp, because if you give them a take-home quiz or some other type of quiz, or even in the class, you can tell if they were doing it at a time they shouldn't have been. So if it's a different date, maybe they got help with it. Okay, that's why also we maybe want to use that feature with the only allowing them to submit answers once. So Google Forms just came out with a new feature that you can make any form a test, and then you can assign point values. So if you go to settings up here at this wheel and bring up this menu, at the top you will see quizzes as an option. So if you click on quizzes, it'll change your menu, and right here if you toggle this switch, make this a quiz, now you'll have all these other options that will come up. So what you can do is you can immediately after each submission, so after each question, you can let the student know if they got it right or wrong. If you want to do it later after manually going through, then you would click here. You want your users to see any missed questions, you would keep that checked, and that is a good idea in case somebody skips over something, so that it would alert them to the fact that they missed a question. And if you want them to see the correct answers after it shows what their grade is, if you want to reveal the correct answers, you would keep this checked. Sometimes teachers like to have a quiz and then make students make the corrections to earn back some points, so if that's the case, you would turn this off. So I'm going to click Save. And now once I've made this a quiz, if you click on a question, so now you have to click in the box, you'll see this option at the bottom comes up that says Answer Key. So this is where you would choose the correct answer for multiple choice questions. So you would actually click in the answer, and this is where you can change your point value. When you get to checkbox questions, you can assign points, but being that there's as many answers as possible, you don't really have to click because all of them could be correct, or just one of them would be correct, so there's no way of stating which specific one is correct, so you can just assign point value. If you notice when you get down to other types of questions, like I'm asking them to write something here, the short answer, okay, a yes/no question, okay, paragraph questions, there's no option here for points because it's a paragraph and it can't self-grade a paragraph. So you'll see here the scale. So if you want to use that quizzing feature, it has to be an all multiple choice or checkbox test. All the questions need to be that so that you can use that feature. What's nice about this feature, if anybody has used the add-on Flubaroo to have it a quiz graded and automatically go into your sheets, you could do that. But now they've added this possibility. And the same thing, if you used Flubaroo, it can't grade questions that are paragraph answers or open-ended response, only multiple choice. So now you don't have to use that, which is a lot more process. You'd have to make a key and everything. Now you can just do it right in Google. So once again, if you go to the settings up here, it's an option at the top, and then you have some other options here that you can pick. So if you have any further questions or would like us to come in and show you, just contact the facilitators at our email, fill out a request form, and we'd love to show you the different ways that you can use Google Forms in your classroom.